That growing fury over a high school athlete who was sentenced probation but no jail time after being charged with sexually assaulting two classmates. There are now calls to remove the judge who made the decision, and ABC's Lindsay Janis is here with the latest. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, George. An online petition calling for the removal of this judge now has more than 14,000 signatures and counting. The petition calls the ruling a slap on the wrist and says the judge is essentially letting a known sex offender on a college campus. This morning, thousands of online petitioners are calling for the removal of the judge who sentenced 18-year-old David Becker to probation instead of prison time after he was charged with sexually assaulting two classmates. At a plea hearing in June, Judge Thomas Estes siding with Becker's lawyer, who argued the former high school athlete had already suffered due to his actions.
There have already been significant consequences, collateral consequences, to simply being charged with the offense in the first place.
The judge adding that a harsher punishment would slam a lot of doors for Becker, whose lawyer described him as a model student who deserved to go to college.
He was a rising star. Everything was going perfect for him. And then suddenly, April 20, 2016, he's at a house party. There's no parents, there's alcohol, there's marijuana, there's testosterone, there's estrogen. A perfect mix for a nuclear disaster.
Becker was arrested in April after two 18-year-old girls told police they'd been drinking at a house party and went to sleep in a bed with him. Becker told police he was unaware she was asleep, and he denied having any contact with victim 2. Prosecutors had recommended 2 years of jail time for Becker. Instead, he got 2 years probation.
I think that the judge's sympathies were misplaced in this case. I think that this offender's college career shouldn't have been the priority. Punishment for the acts he committed would be the priority.
2 investigations are underway involving a Massachusetts court judge accused of sexual harassment. Judge Thomas Estes of Northampton was until recently the presiding justice of the Eastern Hampshire District Court in Belchertown. He also supervised a drug court program in Pittsfield. But in August, Estes was reassigned to administrative duties with the Holyoke District Court. The trial court is not directly connecting Estes' reassignment to a sexual harassment complaint filed with the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination. But Berkshire Eagle investigative editor Larry Parnas says the move follows allegations from a former worker at the Pittsfield Drug Court with whom Estes had an affair.
A woman who had been hired to help start the drug court, her name is Tammy Cagle, a licensed clinical social worker. She entered into a consensual sexual relationship with the judge. The judge and the trial court don't dispute that. She says that over the course of months, she looked up to Estes as a mentor, and it wasn't until early this year, maybe after 6 months or so of a relationship, that she sought to break it off and finally did. And then she believes that she was let go from her position with the trial court in the drug court program because of that.
I represent the Commission on Judicial Conduct in this matter. Today, this court is asked to decide the appropriate disposition for what I would suggest is egregious, willful misconduct by a judge that has seriously damaged public trust in the administration of justice in Massachusetts. This matter is without factual precedent in the history of complaints of judicial conduct in Massachusetts. And after reviewing this court's past cases of judicial misconduct, considered 4 factors in connection with its recommendation for disposition in this matter. The first of which is whether or not Judge Estes' misconduct brought undeserved discredit to the administration of justice in Massachusetts. The Commission's position is that Judge Estes' conduct unquestionably brought discredit to the administration of justice in Massachusetts. From November of 2016 through March of 2017, he engaged in an undisclosed sexual relationship with Ms. Tammy Cagle while she worked as a court clinician as part of the Pittsfield Drug Court over which he presided. Ms. Cagle participated in team discussions regarding whether or not people were good candidates for the Pittsfield Drug Court. She participated in team discussions regarding whether or not people facing probation violation proceedings continued to be good candidates for the Pittsfield Drug Court. She also had one-on-one conversations with Judge Estes about the general operation of the Pittsfield Drug Court before or after her sexual encounters with them. As we pointed out in our brief, to a certain extent it goes to the willful nature of Judge Estes' misconduct, which the Commission considers considered as an aggravating factor in this case. As we point out in our brief, Judge Estes, by his own admission, the day after his first sexual encounter with Ms. Cagle in November of 2016, was racked with guilt, apparently appreciating that what he had just done was wrong, but instead of stop, he continued to have an ongoing sexual relationship with her for another 8 months, continually used on at least 3 occasions his judicial lobby in Belchertown District Court for those sexual encounters with Ms. Cagle, and finally used his judicial email repeatedly to either further his romantic relationship with Ms. Cagle or to at least in part arrange his sexual encounters with Ms. Cagle. So one example, or one contrary example I might point to the court, is the matter of Markey case, where this court suspended Judge Markey for essentially a single act of misconduct for 90 days. Here we don't have a one-time lapse in judgment, essentially, like in the Markey matter. Here we have a judge who did something wrong, knew what he did was wrong, and continued that pattern of conduct for another 8 years.